All right, I'm gonna try to compose myself as much as possible during this. I'll be honest, I spent a good amount of time trying to think about something other than the offensive line and how incredibly inept, ineffective, incompetent, really just a shameful performance by an offensive line with two of your more highly paid positions on the team committing penalties that were just unforgivable. Let's just do this. Let's start off. Let's start off with this. Let's start off with this. Let's start off where the Texans are in field goal position. Easy, Kaimi Fairbank, even if he's not in his prime like he wasn't today. Just all right. It's 3rd and 4. Don't get it? Kick a field goal, right? Nope. False start. Titus Howard. At least he owned up to it. At least he admitted to it. It's loud there.
Offense, number 71. 5-yard penalty. It's 3rd down.
Okay, what are we going to have here, right? Oh, looks like it's going to be offsides on the defense. Oh, look at that. Nope. It was, I'm going to tell you, I'll tell you about this. This pissed me off with Juice Scruggs.
False start by the offensive.
So it was from the silent count when they lift their heads. And when you lift your head, that's the first, like going on one, you lift your head once and everybody goes, lift your head twice, everybody goes. The center's just not allowed to whip his head back like this. The thing is, he could have gotten called on the next play if they hadn't called Laramie Tunsil. Let me get ahead to Laramie Tunsil. 2 plays in a row. 2 plays in a row. 3rd and 14. Laramie Tunsil doesn't think that this is his fault, by the way. He thinks the league is out to get them. Look, is that poorly freaking timed? Look at that. Because it's loud. You're one of the highest paid. You're going to do eyeball emojis the next time somebody gets paid. You're one of the highest paid offensive tackles in the league, and you've got 9 penalties in 3 games. Or is it 10 now? I can't keep track. Juwan Taylor had the most penalties in the league last year with 20. So Laramie's on a breakneck pace to break that. So that was the 3rd one. That knocked him out of field goal range. I mean,
Tunsil on the left side.
It ends up being inconsequential. This is an incomplete pass, but let's just remember, illegal formation, Laramie Tunsil line too deep. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And that's just the stupid stuff, not the actual play on the field where the offensive line screwed up. Let's go to this. And you know what? I'm not going to put this on the offensive line as much as Bobby Slowick overcompensating for a bad offensive line by using full slide protection to where this sack of C.J. Stroud, Cade Stover gets chucked by Jonathan Grenard. Good for Jonathan Grenard. You know what? I don't know if Jonathan Grenard had a chip on his shoulder about playing his old team or not. Let me give you. He should have by the time you start trying to block the best pass rusher on their team with a freaking tight end, a kid that's playing a rookie tight end who's just learning how to play tight end. That's an insult. I'm glad if anybody had to go off that it was Jonathan Grenard, because that was an insult. Let me show you what happens with his full slide protection. Okay, I don't want to get they'll shut me down for copyright if I let it run straight through. I'll enjoy Jonathan Grenard's kick rocket stance there, whatever it is. Good for you, Jonathan Grenard. I say that unironically because what the hell, man? I don't want to see the fans there. I just want to see the end zone copy. All right. You're going to watch the entire offensive line slide to the right. So that way you get to claim that you had 7-man pass protection because you keep a tight end and the running back in. But the idiocy of it is, I mean, there's one thing in quick game or in certain types of plays, but when you've got 7 men in protection, but one of those is a rookie tight end on Jonathan Grenard, and then you got Cam Akers picking up the blitzer, and it just, not to mention Kenyon Green was getting worked there too, it looks like, or was that Laramie himself? Okay, and then one more of these offensive line fiascos. This simple, should be simple to pick up. This blitz that they're going to run by Van Ginkel down here. These things never work. He's lined up like the right defensive end. Loops all the way around. Passes by a tackle, a guard, and a center. The center is somebody who should have seen him. Meanwhile, the right guard, though, is jumping out to help Titus Howard because apparently Titus Howard needs help, even though he's already getting a chip block. And Shaq Mason, like 100% turns his hips. Van Ginkel gets a sack. These guys don't nobody knows what they're doing. Nobody knows what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. That's on Bobby Slowick. That's on Chris Strausser. That's on the veteran leadership on the offensive line. They don't know what they're doing. So I put that on Bobby Slowick partly in terms of the scheme and some of the things they were going to do. You're throwing a speed bump out there to try to block Jonathan Grenard. Like I wish Jonathan Grenard had 7 sacks today. I wish he would. I wish they would learn their lesson instead of blaming the officials for being out to get them, and that's why they had all the false starts. The illegal formations. Do you know what the offensive linemen have to do? The offensive tackles have to do to avoid aligning too deep in the backfield? They have to check with the official. Same way the wide receivers can check with the official, and they'll gladly tell you whether or not you're aligned too deep. There's no excuse for it. It's unbelievable. So that's the offensive line. Bobby Slowick and that offense. Look, 3 of the first 6 drives were upended by pre-snap penalties by the offensive line. 3 of the 6 drives were upended. So when it comes to how wide open the offense needs to be, I would love to see them be able to spread it out more. I'd love to be able to see CJ sit back there and empty. I don't know how much they can trust this offensive line to actually block that. They can barely get out of their own ways. And against a team that blitzes a lot, that gets super, super dicey. And yet, I need to see something more than just gadgetry. I need to see some kind of a credible rushing attack without Joe Mixon in there and not versus the Indianapolis Colts. And all that falls back onto Bobby Slowick. If you don't do the simple things well at the offensive line and in the run game, it's really hard to make the passing game look simple. And we saw CJ a couple times today get into trouble just looking exactly like Brock Purdy did last week, where, look, like, frankly, Brian Flores just owns the Kubiak-Shanahan system this year so far. He owns them. And, oh, man, I'll tell you, if I were Tua, I would have been emotionally damaged too. That's a scary man. That man knows how to scare people, especially quarterbacks. I think Brian Flores couldn't turn it off when it was his own quarterback. So he scared Tua the same way he scared Brock Purdy and CJ Stroud. They got to get that going. They got to figure some things out because it's just dumb. Defensively. You feel good about your cornerbacks, right? You're supposed to have a really good pass rush. Paid a lot for it. Why does Justin Jefferson get treated with a cushion fatter than my diabetic aunt? I won't say her name. She's fat, and that's how much cushion you gave her. Okay, great. Hey, Justin Jefferson was shut down in the second half. Maybe giving some leeway to Justin Jefferson and letting Brock Purdy have to force it to everybody else in the first half was actually a good strategy. The Vikings only had one sustained drive. They had the one short drive off of the turnover. But overall, I hate to reduce it to these things, but that Vikings team was just more dialed in. They were more focused. They were grittier. They were tougher. They were a team that looked like they weren't as concerned with podcasting or just being like everything else. That they looked like a more blue collar football team. They just flat out did. And I'm not saying every Texans player didn't go out there. I'm not saying every Texans player wasn't tough or something like that. It's always an individual thing. But man, the Texans, this is like the Jets game last year, except this time you decided to not show up and play versus a really good team. And you can shoot yourself. I mean, they just shoot themselves in the foot continually and constantly. The sloppiest player on the team is Laramie Tunsil. So when your veteran leadership is brazenly not even accepting responsibility for being the sloppiest football player on the team, and you pay him better than everybody else on the football team, I guess that's the message you're sending. I mean, that's you can talk swarm all you want. You can preach all the right things and guys can be, oh, shucks, go out and play well. But at the end of the day, you got to kick somebody's ass. You got to not commit penalties. Very frustrating. Yeah, and Jefferson will line up in the slot. which makes it tougher to use your two good outside cornerbacks. I guess the question there becomes, all right, does one of those guys need to spend more time in the slot, or is this going to be an inherent weakness when you've got a nickelback who isn't actually a cornerback playing nickelback? He's a safety slash linebacker. And then you end up having to play more nickel, more dime, even at times when you do have to stop the pass. That leaves you more susceptible to the run. So they're going to have to figure some things out here, and they're going to have to figure out who can man up on a guy like at least jam him or man up on him and cover. You've got two good corners on the outside, then freaking put somebody on Jefferson when he's in the slot, manned up, and give him some help over the top. But just letting these guys go unchallenged, oh, it's frustrating, man. It's really frustrating. How much of the interior line struggles is to do with line calls and missed assignments? Well, like the one we watched there on the Van Winkle. I'm not even trying to insult the guy. I think it's a great name. I just can't remember what it actually is. He's been making plays all year long. I mean, some of this is just simple, basic rules of passing it off. The interior offensive line, including Shaq Mason, have gotten duped on stuff that rookies get duped on. And it's just a complete and total lack of awareness. I mean, it's frustrating. I don't know. Let Stingley travel with the one. Right. If you want him in the slot, I mean, that's the thing. Yeah, just put him in the slot then too. Like, you can play the slot. Just do it. Go everywhere. Everyone talking about Sloak's play calling. Doesn't matter what you call when the O-line sucks. Right. But I don't want to excuse Sloak from all of that, because that's one thing. It would be a lot better with Joe Mixon in there, but it can't be as bad as it was today, where, like, honestly, Cam Akers had to make a lot of his own yardage. I don't know how many times did he actually have a clear path. 9 carries for 21 yards. J.J. Taylor had one impressive carry for 3 yards, but it looked like he might have gotten bisected at the end of it. I hope he's okay. British Brooks had one carry for 2 yards. C.J. Stroud was your second leading rusher, 3 carries for 12 yards. The Texans had 38 yards rushing today. The Minnesota Vikings, several hours after I published a video bragging about the Texans' run defense versus running backs, because they'd held running backs to 2.3 yards per carry this year. Aaron Jones goes 19 carries for 102 yards. Ty Chandler was bottled up a little bit, better than last week at least. And you kept Justin Jefferson to under 100 yards. So there's our consolation prize for that. Yeah, Slowick's responsible for the offensive line, and he himself mentioned in the press conference this week that, look, teams spend a whole lot of time stressing the passing game, and sometimes it's a matter of stressing the run game when you want to run the ball well. You got to divvy up that time in practice and devote what you can to what you can get out of it. And they need remedial work in the run game. And I don't know. The fact that Laramie, in his interview with Aaron Wilson, it didn't seem to me like he really takes accountability for any of these penalty issues, despite the fact that he's so grossly penalized this year, and that the false starts they're not even a few years ago when they were all ticky-tack and it looked like he was leaving like right at the time of the snap. These are some bad false starts. There's a level of accountability on the offensive line where, man, like, you call them the big uglies for a reason, and it's supposed to be an affectionate term. It's not big Gucci. It's not big suave. It's not anything like that. It's, man, be the guys that stand up and take accountability and don't care that much about getting media attention. But you're brewing a cauldron here full of diva offensive linemen who actually aren't even that good. Guys get offended on social media about preseason rankings and everything. Like, what do you like? Honestly, what the hell do those guys have to get offended about? What part of the Texans offensive line getting offended on social media has any tie to the reality of the situation last year or from what we've seen the last 2 games? I'm at a loss. I don't know, man. Fire Chris Strausser. I hate to be the guy that says, fire the hitting coach or fire the pitching coach in baseball, but fire Chris Strausser. Do something, because man, it's not working. It is not working. You can call plays to make up for the disadvantages of the offensive line. True, but they kind of burn through those in the first half. If you notice the nice little gadgets, the reverse passes, the throw to a gumbo wale, all that stuff. It's fun to throw the little gadgets. Screens, right? Yeah, screens will work until teams know that that's what you're going to do. Like there's only so much you can do against a good defense to account for a bad offensive line. And this is the thing. It is, I will place it at least 50% on coaching, because some of this stuff is high school level stuff. These guys are just not picking up simple things. They look completely and totally unaware. Then and times in the run game, there's just flat out laziness. There's just flat out, what thing that bothers me? And I don't know, probably offensive line coaches differ on this. Look, when you block a guy to the ground, people love when like, oh yeah, he blocked him to the ground and then he jumped on him. No, how about you keep running and block a second one, you fucking fat, lazy bastard? Like what? You fat, stupid, lazy bastards. Just block people. Get people driven downfield. Like what the hell? There cannot be this vein of laziness through an entire offensive line that is just so inept and so bad. And the very reason, like, do they realize that they are the weak link? Do understand you're the weak link on an otherwise very good football team. It's unacceptable. Yeah, that's just like my, yeah, I don't know. You can call plays to make up for a weak offensive line, and then those plays can suck too. All right, I got to go to KHOU. I was going to react to highlights. I need some semblance of structure in post games when it goes like this, but that was a complete and total dismantling. It could have been a competitive game. I think the Texans had a chance to move the ball. I think the Texans in the first half did some good things. They were playing bend but don't break, but they were getting stops on defense. Eventually the dam broke and everything fell all the hell apart. I think like most of you, I couldn't believe it was 14-0 at halftime. It may as well have been 36-0 at halftime. And I think the yards per play reflected that. I think by the half, the Texans had like 3 yards per play, and the Vikings had a gazillion yards per play. This guy was going back to like I had my prejudice against offensive linemen. I thought had left me, but there we go.